My brother-in-law told me to stay out of the family and called me trash, so I took back what was mine, repossessed everything they lived on, and watched their fake perfect life collapse overnight, alone. I'm a 29-year-old male who has been working construction since I was 18. I started as a general laborer making minimum wage, worked my way up, got my contractor's license, and now I run my own crew doing commercial renovations. Last year I cleared about $165,000, which isn't bad for a guy who never went to college. I live alone in a house I bought and renovated myself. Nothing fancy, but it's mine and completely paid off. My sister Jessica is 26 and has been a professional user her entire adult life. She's attractive, I'll give her that. But she has the work ethic of a spoiled house cat and thinks the world owes her everything because she knows how to do her makeup and take selfies. She's bounced between retail jobs, waitressing, and trying to become an influencer where she posts pictures hoping some rich guy will notice her. Our parents divorced when I was 15 and Jessica was 12. Dad remarried and basically started a new family. Mom never recovered emotionally and spent the next decade treating Jessica like her precious princess, while expecting me to be the man of the house. When I moved out at 18, Mom constantly guilt-tripped me about abandoning the family, while Jessica got to live rent-free doing whatever she wanted. Fast forward to last year when Jessica called me crying because she was getting evicted again, the third time in 2 years. I'd already bailed her out, twice before, once for $2,600 and once for $1,400. This time she needed $3,100 for back rent plus deposits for a new place. Please, Ryan, I've learned my lesson this time. I got a new job at this boutique and they're promoting me to assistant manager soon. I'll pay you back in 3 months, I promise. Yeah, sure. But like an idiot, I gave her the money because family, right? Did I mention she never paid me back from the previous 2 times either? So she moved into this new apartment, and suddenly, she was posting pictures of herself in designer clothes, going to expensive restaurants, and getting her nails done weekly. When I asked about repayment, she always had excuses. I had to buy work clothes, or my car needed repairs, or, my personal favorite, I thought you said it was a gift. Then in October she called with big news. She was engaged to this guy Derek, whom she'd been dating for maybe 4 months. Derek is 32, works in finance, which I later discovered means he sells insurance, drives a leased BMW, and thinks he's successful because he wears suits to work. We're having the wedding in June at Riverside Country Club. It's going to be absolutely perfect. Riverside Country Club is the most expensive venue in our city where tech executives and lawyers get married. I immediately knew this would be a financial disaster. How much is this costing? I asked. Well, that's what I wanted to discuss with you. Of course it was. She launched into this sob story about how Derek's parents were contributing $14,000 but they needed another $26,000 to make it the dream wedding she'd always wanted. Mom could only contribute $4,500 because she was on a fixed income, so they needed $21,500 more, and Derek had maxed out his credit cards on the engagement ring and wedding planning. Could you maybe help us out as a wedding gift? $21,000, more than most people make in 6 months, for one single day. Jessica, that's a lot of money. Why don't you just have a smaller wedding? Wrong thing to say. She immediately started crying about how this was the most important day of her life, how she'd dreamed about it since she was little, how Derek's ex-girlfriend had a huge wedding and she couldn't look cheap in comparison. Please, Ryan, you're doing so well with your business. This would mean everything to me. I promise I'll pay you back. The same promise she'd made 3 times before and never kept. But I was stupid enough to think maybe marriage would finally teach her responsibility, maybe having a husband would settle her down, and honestly, I had the money. Business was excellent and I didn't have major expenses coming up. And she was my sister, so I agreed to help. Biggest mistake of my life. The moment I agreed to fund the wedding, Jessica transformed into a complete nightmare. Not gradually, literally overnight, she became this entitled monster who treated my money like her personal trust fund. The first thing she did was text me a list. Not a thank you so much or I really appreciate this, just a detailed list of vendors with amounts I needed to pay and deadlines. Venue final payment $17,200 due February 15th. Photography package $3,900 due March 1st. Catering upgrade $3,600 due March 15th. Wedding dress alterations $580 due April 1st. Flowers $1,950 due May 1st. She'd already committed to all of this without asking me, just assumed I'd pay whatever she spent. When I called her about it, she was like, Oh, Derek and I figured since you were being so generous, we might as well make it really special. Jessica, you said you needed $21,500. This adds up to over 27,000. Well, yeah, but we decided to upgrade some things. Don't worry, Derek's getting a bonus at work in March. That'll cover the difference. Spoiler alert, there was no bonus, but it gets worse. Over the next few months, she kept hitting me up for additional money. Her car needed new tires, $750. She needed a bridesmaid dress for her friend's wedding, $280. She wanted to surprise Derek with a weekend trip for his birthday, $550. Always with the same line, I'll pay you back when Derek gets his bonus check, promotion, commission check. The worst part was her attitude toward me, like I was her personal bank instead of her brother funding her entire lifestyle. She'd call and immediately start discussing what she needed money for. No, how are you or how's work, just straight to business. One time I was having a terrible week, lost a major contract because the client was difficult, one of my workers got injured, the truck needed expensive repairs. When Jessica called asking for another $380 for wedding favors, I mentioned I was stressed about work and money was tight that month. Her response, well, you committed to paying for my wedding, so you can't back out now. Besides, your problems aren't my problem. Her problems weren't my problem either, but here I was funding everything. Derek wasn't much better. The dude acted like I should be grateful for the opportunity to fund his wedding. He never said thank you, never offered to contribute, just treated it like I owed them something. The few times I was around him, he'd make comments about how generous I was being, but in this sarcastic way, like he thought I was showing off. Around April, things got really problematic. Derek lost his job. Not laid off, not downsized, terminated for not meeting sales targets. Suddenly, all those bonus checks and commission payments Jessica kept promising weren't coming. Did they scale back the wedding? Did they consider postponing until they were financially stable? Of course not. Don't worry, Jessica told me. Derek's already interviewing for better positions. He'll probably make even more money at the next job. Meanwhile, she kept spending like nothing had changed. New outfits for wedding events, expensive dinners out, a $1,100 hair and makeup trial because the first one didn't capture her vision. By May, I'd paid out over $29,000, and she was still requesting more. The final straw was when she called wanting money for a bachelorette party in Miami. It's only going to be like $2,300 for my share. Brittany's planning everything, and she booked this amazing house with a pool, and we're going to get bottle service at the clubs. Jessica, Derek doesn't even have a job right now. Don't you think a $2,300 party is excessive? Oh my goodness, Ryan, you're being so negative. This is supposed to be the best time of my life. Why are you trying to ruin it? That's when it really hit me. She didn't see this as my money. In her mind, I was just there to make her dreams come true, and any hesitation was me being selfish and mean. I paid for the bachelorette party because I'm an idiot who thought family meant something, but I was starting to document everything, every receipt, every bank transfer, every text message where she promised repayment. Something told me I was going to need proof later. Thank goodness I did. June 15th, the day of Jessica's dream wedding that had cost me over $32,000 by the final count, I put on my best suit, bought an expensive bottle of champagne as an additional gift, and showed up ready to support my sister on her big day. The venue was absolutely gorgeous, I'll admit. Riverside Country Club overlooking the water, perfect weather, flowers everywhere. Must have looked incredible on Instagram. Everything I'd paid for looked exactly like the magazine pictures Jessica had been obsessing over for months. But something felt wrong from the start. I arrived early to help with setup because, despite funding everything, I was apparently also expected to provide free labor. The wedding coordinator asked me where I was sitting. I'm Ryan, Jessica's brother, I told her. She checked her list, frowned, checked again. I don't see your name here. Let me contact the bride. 20 minutes later, Jessica came rushing over in her robe with her hair half done, looking annoyed that she had to deal with this. Oh, right, Ryan, we had to make some changes to the seating chart last week. Derek's boss and his wife are coming, so we needed to make room at the family table. She handed me a small card, Table 8. I looked at the seating chart. Table 8 was in the back corner behind a decorative pillar with people I'd never met in my life, while Derek's SEO workers, whom I'd never seen before, were at Table 2, right up front. Jessica, I paid for this entire wedding. I think I deserve better than the back corner. Don't be dramatic, Ryan. It's just for dinner. You'll barely notice. Just for dinner at the wedding I'd paid $32,000 for. But I didn't want to cause drama, so I agreed and went to help move chairs or whatever task they had for me next. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Jessica looked stunning. Derek cleaned up nicely. They said their vows. Everyone cried. The usual stuff. I was genuinely happy for her in that moment, thinking maybe this was all worth it if it made her happy.
Then came the reception.
I was sitting at table 8 with Derek's cousin's children and some random college friends of Jessica's, watching everyone else enjoy themselves at their properly placed tables. The food was excellent. It should be for $3,600. The band was great, another $2,100. And the flowers looked perfect. That $1,950 again. During the speeches, Derek got up and thanked everyone who made this magical day possible. He thanked his parents for their generous contribution, thanked the wedding party for their support, thanked his boss for giving him time off, the same boss who terminated him 2 months earlier but apparently hired him back, even thanked the caterers. He never mentioned me once. Not a single word about the guy who paid for 85% of their wedding. After dinner, I was standing by the bar when Derek approached. He'd been celebrating since the ceremony and was feeling chatty. "Great party, right?" he said, putting his arm around my shoulder like we were best friends. "Yeah, it turned out nice," I replied. "You know what's funny?" he said, getting closer and lowering his voice. "Jessica was so worried about money for this wedding, but it all worked out. Her sucker brother came through." He laughed like he'd just told the funniest joke in the world. "What did you just say?" "Oh, come on, don't be sensitive. We all know you were trying to buy your way into being important. Mission accomplished, right? You got to feel like a big shot for a few months." I stared at him for a long moment, waiting for him to say he was joking or that he'd misspoken, but he just kept smiling that smug smile. "Derek, I paid for this entire wedding. And we're very grateful," he said, but his tone was mocking. "Don't worry, we'll send you a nice thank you card." That's when Jessica appeared, looking gorgeous in her $2,200 dress that I'd paid for, and immediately noticed the tension. "What's going on?" she asked. "Your husband just called me a sucker for paying for your wedding," I said. I waited for her to get angry at him, to defend me, to show some appreciation for everything I'd done. Instead, she laughed. "Oh, Derek, you're terrible," she said, but she was still laughing. "Don't mind him, Ryan, he's had too much champagne." "So you think it's funny too?" "I think you're being way too serious," she said. "It's my wedding day. Can we not do this right now?" That was it. That was the moment I realized I'd been played completely. To them, I wasn't family who'd made sacrifices to help. I was just some pathetic loser who'd thrown money at them so they'd let me hang around. I didn't make a scene, didn't yell or cause drama. I just said, "Congratulations on your marriage," and walked out. But as I was leaving, I heard Derek say to someone behind me, "Don't worry about him. He'll get over it. He needs us more than we need him." That's when I decided they were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. I went home and sat in my kitchen staring at a folder full of receipts and bank statements. Every payment I'd made for the wedding, every loan I'd given Jessica over the years, every time she'd promised repayment and didn't follow through. The numbers were staggering. Wedding expenses, $32,247. Previous loans never repaid, $7,100. Various emergencies over the years, $3,900. Total, $43,247. $43,000. That's a new truck. A down payment on rental property, more than some people make in a year, and I just handed it over to someone who thought I was a sucker. My phone was blowing up with messages from the wedding, Mom asking where I went, Jessica wanting to know why I stormed out, Derek sending some ridiculous non-apology about how he was just joking around. I ignored all of them and started doing research. See, when you own a construction business, you learn about contracts, liens, and legal ways to recover money from people who think they can cheat you. I'd never had to use those skills on family before, but desperate times call for desperate measures. I spent the weekend going through everything. Jessica had signed a promissory note for the first $2,600 I'd loaned her. My lawyer had insisted on it after I got burned by a client. The other loans were documented in text messages where she'd promised repayment. The wedding expenses were trickier since I'd positioned them as a gift, but I had evidence that it was supposed to be a loan based on her repeated promises to repay me. More importantly, I started looking into Derek's financial situation. Remember how he'd been terminated and then supposedly rehired? Yeah, that was complete nonsense. I discovered through a contact who works in commercial real estate that Derek's new job was actually a commission-only insurance sales position with no base salary. Dude was basically unemployed but lying about it to maintain appearances. They were living in an apartment they couldn't afford, driving cars they couldn't afford, and their honeymoon to Europe, another $7,500, was being funded entirely by credit cards. Monday morning, I got a call from Jessica. Ryan, I don't understand why you left early. People were asking where you were. Did you tell them I was the sucker who paid for the wedding? Oh my goodness, Derek had too much to drink. He didn't mean anything by it. What about you laughing about it? Silence for a moment then. I think you're being really unfair. I've been nothing but grateful for everything you've done. When have you ever said thank you? Another pause. I I say thank you all the time. No, Jessica, you don't. You treat me like a bank. You call when you need money and ignore me the rest of the time. She couldn't answer that because we both knew the truth. Look, she said finally, I'm sorry if you feel unappreciated, but you can just expect me to be grateful forever for something you chose to do. Something I chose to do, not something she'd begged me for while crying about how desperate she was. You're right, I said. I chose to help you. And now I'm choosing to stop. What do you mean? I mean, I want my money back, all of it. She laughed like I'd told a joke. Ryan, you can't be serious. That money was a gift. No, it was a loan. You promised to pay me back multiple times. I have the text messages. I can't pay you back right now. We just spent everything on the wedding and honeymoon. Then you better figure it out. I hung up and immediately drove to my lawyer's office. My lawyer is this experienced guy who's helped me with business contracts and property deals for years. When I showed him all the documentation I had, he got this satisfied expression on his face. Ryan, your sister is in serious trouble, he said. The promissory note alone is enough to put a lien on any property she owns. The text messages about paying you back make the wedding expenses recoverable as loans, not gifts. And if she defaults, we can garnish her wages. How long does this process take? I can file the paperwork this week. She'll have 30 days to respond or pay up. Do it. 3 days later, Jessica called me screaming. What the heck, Ryan? A process server just came to my apartment. I told you I wanted my money back. I can't pay you $43,000. We don't have that kind of money. You should have thought about that before you called me a sucker. I never called you that. You laughed when Derek did. Same thing. I could hear Derek in the background yelling something about how I was out of my mind and how they were going to sue me for harassment. Good luck with that, I said. Your husband doesn't even have a real job. That's when Jessica really lost it. She started screaming about how I was destroying her marriage, how I was a bitter loser who couldn't stand to see her happy, how she was going to tell everyone what a psycho I was. Tell whoever you want, I said. Just make sure you also tell them how much money you owe me. I hung up and blocked her number. The next few weeks were chaos. Mom called crying about how I was tearing the family apart over money. I reminded her that Jessica had been taking money from me for years and never paying it back, but apparently that didn't matter because family helps family. Then, where was the family when I was working 70-hour weeks to build my business, I asked. Where was the family when I needed help? That's different, Mom said. You're successful now. I'm successful because I worked for it, not because someone handed it to me. She hung up on me. Jessica tried reaching out through mutual friends, painting me as this obsessive, greedy person who was demanding money back from a wedding gift, but I'd anticipated this and had already shown the promissory notes and text messages to a few key people. Hard to play victim when there's written proof that you borrowed money and never paid it back. The real fun started when Derek's parents discovered their son had been lying about his job. Turns out they'd been bragging to their friends about their successful new son-in-law and his finance career. When word got around that he was actually unemployed and getting sued for $43,000, they were mortified. Jessica called me from her mother-in-law's phone since I'd blocked her, begging me to work something out. We can pay you back in installments, she said, like $500 a month, $500 a month for 80, 6 months, that's over 7 years. We'll pay interest. I don't want installments. I want my money back now. We don't have it. Then sell something, downsize, get real jobs, figure it out. The court date was set for 6 weeks after I filed. During that time, Jessica and Derek tried everything to avoid paying. They claimed the wedding expenses were gifts. Text messages proved otherwise. They said I was lying about the amounts. Bank records proved otherwise. They even tried to argue that I could afford to lose the money, so it didn't matter, which isn't how loans work. Their lawyer, some budget attorney they found online, basically told them they were in serious trouble and should try to settle. That's when things got really interesting. 2 weeks before the court date, Derek's insurance sales job fell through. Turns out when you have no experience in a pending lawsuit, companies don't want to hire you for commission-only positions that require your own leads and networking. Jessica, meanwhile, had been working part-time at a boutique making maybe $1,100 a month, nowhere near enough to cover their $2,300 rent, car payments, credit cards, and basic living expenses. I heard through the grapevine, Mom, who couldn't help herself from keeping me updated despite being mad at me, that they'd asked Derek's parents for help. His parents offered to let them move in temporarily but weren't willing to pay their debts. Smart people. Then Jessica tried a different approach. She showed up at my job site one afternoon while I was finishing up a bathroom renovation for a high-end client. "Ryan, please, we need to talk," she said. I was not happy about her bringing drama to my workplace, but I stepped outside to avoid making a scene in front of my client. "You've got 5 minutes," I said. "Look, I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. Derek was completely out of line at the wedding, and I should have stood up for you." Finally, something resembling an apology. "But please," she continued, "can't we work something out? I'll pay you back. I swear it might take a while, but I'll get a better job. Derek's looking for work. We'll make it happen." "You've made that promise before, Jessica, multiple times. This is different. I understand now how much I've taken advantage of you. I was spoiled and selfish, and I'm sorry." She was crying real tears, looking genuinely remorseful. For a moment, I almost felt bad for her. "If I drop the lawsuit," I said, "what guarantee do I have that you'll actually pay me back this time? I'll sign whatever you want. Legal documents, payment schedules, whatever makes you feel secure." I thought about it for a minute. Maybe she really had learned her lesson. Maybe getting sued had scared her enough to take this seriously. "I want $5,000 by the end of the month as a good faith payment," I said. "Then $2,000 a month after that until it's paid off. All documented legally." Her face fell. "Ryan, we don't have $5,000, we barely have $500. "Then get it. Sell your jewelry, sell Derek's BMW, get a loan from someone else, figure it out. You know we can't get approved for a loan with our credit. Not my problem. What if we could do $1,000 up front and then $1,500 a month? Jessica, you make $1,100 a month and Derek makes nothing. Where exactly is this $1,500 going to come from?" She started crying harder. "I don't know, but please don't take this to court. It'll ruin our credit. Derek won't be able to get a good job. We'll lose our apartment." "Maybe you should have thought about that before you spent money you didn't have on a wedding you couldn't afford." That's when the real Jessica came back out. "You're being completely vindictive," she screamed. "You have plenty of money. This won't even hurt you. It's not about the money anymore, Jessica. It's about the principle. Forget your principles. You're destroying my life over something that doesn't even matter to you. If it doesn't matter, then pay me back." She stormed off, but not before yelling loud enough for my client to hear, "I hope you're happy when I'm living on the street." My client came out as Jessica was driving away. "Friend of yours?" she asked with a raised eyebrow. "Sister," I said. "Ah," she nodded knowingly. "The expensive kind?" I finished the job, but word got around pretty quickly about the scene Jessica had caused. Small town, people talk. Within a week, everyone in my professional network knew that my sister owed me $43,000 and was trying to avoid paying it back. The court date arrived. Jessica and Derek showed up with their discount lawyer looking like they were attending a funeral. Their strategy was basically to throw themselves on the mercy of the court and hope the judge would feel sorry for them. Didn't work. The judge took one look at the evidence, the promissory note, the text messages, the bank records, and ruled in my favor for the full amount, plus court costs and interest. Total judgment, $46,800. Jessica burst into tears in the courtroom. Derek just sat there looking defeated. "Your Honor," their lawyer said, "my clients would like to request a payment plan." "They can work that out with the plaintiff," the judge said. Next case. Outside the courthouse, Jessica was sobbing while Derek paced around looking like he wanted to punch something. "You happy now?" Derek asked me. "You've officially ruined our lives." "No," I said. "You ruined your own lives by spending money you didn't have and then treating me like garbage when I tried to help." "We'll appeal this," he said. "With what money?" I asked. "You can't even afford the lawyer you have." That's when I played my final card. "By the way," I told Jessica, "since you can't pay the judgment, I'll be placing liens on any assets you own. That includes your car, any bank accounts, and future wages. Oh, and Derek, good luck getting hired anywhere with a $46,800 judgment on your credit report." I walked away while they were still processing what I'd just said. The best part, I wasn't even done yet. 3 months after the court judgment, Jessica and Derek's world had completely collapsed. Derek couldn't get hired anywhere decent because the background check always showed the judgment. Jessica had been forced to quit her boutique job and take a position at a call center that paid $10 an hour because I'd garnished her wages at the boutique. They'd lost their apartment and moved in with Derek's parents, which lasted exactly 2 weeks before his dad kicked them out. Apparently, Derek and his father got into a screaming match about financial responsibility and making better choices. Since then, they'd been staying in a studio apartment in the worst part of town, driving a beat-up Honda Civic they'd bought for $2,800 after I had Derek's BMW repossessed to satisfy part of the judgment. Mom had tried to guilt me into dropping the whole thing multiple times, but I stood firm. They made their choices, I kept telling her. Now they have to live with the consequences. The turning point came on a Tuesday in October. I was at home watching the game when someone started pounding on my door like the house was on fire. I looked through the peephole and saw Jessica standing there in clothes I recognized from high school, looking like she hadn't slept in days. I opened the door and she immediately collapsed into tears. "Ryan, please, I'm begging you. We'll lose everything if you don't help us." "What are you talking about?" "Derek's dad co-signed our apartment lease. If we get evicted, it'll destroy his credit too, and he's threatening to sue us for damages. We need $2,600 by Friday or we're out." I let her in because she looked genuinely desperate. Her hair was unwashed, she'd lost probably 20 pounds, and she had dark circles under her eyes like she'd been crying for weeks. "Jessica, you owe me almost $47,000. Why would I give you more money?" "Because I'm your sister," she wailed. "Because I'm sorry, because I've learned my lesson. You said that before. This is different. I know how badly I messed up. I know I was a terrible sister and I took advantage of you and I treated you like garbage." She was sobbing so hard she could barely speak. "Please, Ryan. Derek and I are talking about divorce. We can't handle the stress anymore. We fight about money every single day. I've lost all my friends because I can't afford to go out. I'm working at a call center getting yelled at by strangers for $10 an hour. My life is completely ruined." For the first time since this whole thing started, I actually felt a little sorry for her. She looked broken in a way I'd never seen before. "Where's Derek?" I asked. He's at his friend's place. We had a fight yesterday and he said he couldn't deal with this anymore. He said marrying me was the biggest mistake of his life. That hit different. Whatever I thought about Derek, hearing that your husband regrets marrying you has got to hurt. What exactly are you asking me to do?" "Drop the judgment," she said immediately. "Please, I know I owe you the money, and I swear I'll pay you back somehow, but having that hanging over us is making it impossible to get jobs or rent apartments or do anything. Derek's talking about filing bankruptcy just to get out from under it." "And why would I do that?" She struggled for words. Because I'm begging you. Because I'm admitting you were right about everything. Because I'm promising to be a better sister if you give me this chance." I sat there looking at her for a long moment. Part of me felt vindicated. She was finally admitting everything I'd said about her being selfish and entitled. But another part of me felt like maybe I'd made my point, and it was time to ease up. "Here's the deal," I said finally. "I'll drop the judgment, but you have to agree to some conditions." Her face lit up with hope. "Anything, whatever you want. First, you pay me back $500 a month starting immediately, not $200. Not when you can afford it. $500 every month on the same date." "Okay, yes." "Second, Derek gets a real job with a steady paycheck within 60 days. Not this commission stuff. I'll make sure he does. Third, no more asking me for money ever, for any reason. Emergency, non-emergency, doesn't matter. You figure it out on your own. I understand. And fourth," I said, "you apologize to me publicly. Post on Facebook, Instagram, wherever. Tell everyone exactly what happened and how you were wrong." She hesitated at that one. "Ryan, that's really embarrassing. Not as embarrassing as getting evicted because you can't afford rent." "Okay," she said quietly. "I'll do it. And Jessica, if you break any of these conditions, the judgment goes back into effect immediately and I'll pursue collection twice as hard as before." "I won't break them," she said. "I promise." 2 days later, she posted a long message on social media that basically said everything I'd wanted to hear for years. How she'd taken advantage of my generosity. How she'd been spoiled and entitled. How she was sorry for treating me badly and was committed to making things right. Derek found a job at a manufacturing plant working second shift for $15 an hour. Not glamorous, but steady income. Jessica picked up a second job waitressing on weekends. They've been paying me back for 6 months now and haven't missed a payment yet. Derek's been polite the few times I've seen him, and Jessica actually asks about my life now instead of just talking about herself. Are we close like we used to be? No. Will I ever fully trust her again? Probably not. But she learned a very expensive lesson about biting the hand that feeds you. And I got my money back. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes you have to be willing to burn bridges to teach people respect. Family doesn't give you the right to treat people terribly just because you know they love you. Best $47,000 lesson I ever taught.